The moment the aircraft jolted hard enough to rattle the overhead bins, the sleeping man in seat 8A felt it in his bones before his mind caught up. His head snapped forward, his heart lurched, and for one terrifying second he thought he was back in the desert again, heat burning his lungs, alarms screaming from somewhere he couldn't see. The plane dipped, rose too fast, and then dipped again, and somewhere far ahead a strained announcement echoed through the cabin asking if any combat pilots were on board. Fear spread like electricity through the aisles, but the man in seat 8A stayed still, eyes open now, jaw tight, hands slowly clenching as if around invisible controls he had sworn he would never touch again. Before the story pulls you deeper into what happened next, take a quick second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of ordinary people, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from because stories like this connect hearts across the world. His name was Daniel Carter, and nothing about him looked heroic anymore. He was a single father flying economy on a discounted ticket, wearing a faded jacket that had seen better years, with dark circles under his eyes that no amount of sleep could erase. The reason he had been asleep at all was exhaustion, the kind that comes from working double shifts at a warehouse and then staying up late helping with homework, packing lunches, and trying to convince a scared little girl that her nightmares would fade with the morning light. Daniel's life had narrowed to survival and responsibility after his wife, Emily, passed away suddenly 3 years earlier, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, and a grief that never truly loosened its grip. The flight was meant to be a small step forward, a visit to his parents so Lily could feel surrounded by family again, but turbulence had turned that fragile hope into something sharp and threatening. As the plane shook again, harder this time, Daniel noticed the change in the air around him. Flight attendants moved faster, faces tense but controlled, and passengers gripped armrests or whispered prayers under their breath. Somewhere beyond the cockpit door, something was wrong enough that the captain had broken protocol and reached out to the cabin. Daniel lowered his eyes, fighting the familiar war inside himself, because he knew exactly why that announcement felt like a hand reaching into his chest. Years ago, before he was a widower, before he was just a tired dad counting every dollar, he had been a decorated combat pilot, trusted with lives, trained to make impossible decisions under crushing pressure. He had walked away from that world after one mission went sideways and cost him friends he still dreamed about, choosing family over the sky, peace over adrenaline. He had promised Emily he was done, promised Lily before she could even speak that he would always come home. The plane lurched again, sharp enough to draw gasps, and a memory cut through Daniel's hesitation like a blade. He saw Lily that morning, her small arms wrapped around his neck, whispering that she didn't like planes because they fell out of the sky in movies. He had smiled and lied gently, telling her planes were safest when they stayed together, when everyone did their part. Now, with panic rising and the captain's request hanging unanswered, Daniel felt the weight of that lie pressing down on him. He looked around at the faces near him, strangers clinging to strangers, and realized that whatever fear he carried was nothing compared to the fear surrounding him now. When he finally stood, it wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden burst of courage, just a tired man pushing himself up on shaky legs, every step forward dredging up memories he had tried to bury. His heart pounded as he moved down the aisle, aware of the eyes following him, aware that stepping forward meant reopening a chapter of his life he had sealed shut. He thought about turning back, about sitting down and letting someone else be braver, but the plane shuddered again, and that settled it. Responsibility had always been his compass, even when it hurt. Inside the cockpit, the situation was dire. Instruments were malfunctioning due to a sudden electrical failure triggered by violent weather, and the co-pilot was injured after being thrown against the console. The captain was holding the aircraft steady through sheer will, but every second mattered. Daniel took in the chaos with a calm that surprised even him, muscle memory rising to meet the moment as if it had been waiting patiently all along. He didn't feel like a hero, he felt like a father who couldn't afford to freeze. He adjusted, assessed, and began helping in the only way he knew how, drawing on training earned through years of sacrifice and scars that never fully healed. Time stretched in strange ways as the plane fought through the storm. Each movement felt heavy with consequence, each correction a gamble, and yet Daniel found himself slipping into a rhythm he thought he had lost forever. The fear didn't vanish, but it became something manageable, something that sharpened instead of paralyzed. He thought of Emily's laugh, of the way she used to squeeze his hand before takeoff, trusting him completely. He thought of Lily waiting at the other end of this flight, clutching her stuffed rabbit, believing her dad could fix anything. Those thoughts steadied him more than any instrument ever could. When the turbulence finally began to ease and the aircraft descended toward an emergency landing, the tension in the cabin was almost unbearable. Passengers braced themselves, tears streaming freely now, hands clasped in silent solidarity. The landing was rough, bone-jarring, but it held, and when the plane came to a stop, a sound rose from the cabin that Daniel would never forget. It wasn't just relief, it was gratitude poured out in sobs, laughter, and whispered thanks. He didn't stay to receive it. As soon as the professionals took over, he stepped back, suddenly aware of how badly his hands were shaking. Later, sitting alone near the gate with emergency lights still flashing outside, Daniel felt the crash of exhaustion and emotion hit him all at once. He wasn't sure if he had saved the plane or if luck had simply chosen to be kind, but he knew something inside him had shifted. For the first time since Emily's death, he didn't feel like a man defined only by loss. He felt capable again, not because of his past, but because he had faced it and used it for something good. When Lily ran into his arms minutes later, eyes wide and scared, he held her tighter than ever, breathing in the reality of her warmth, her life, their future. If you're still here, pause for a moment and tell us in the comments what part of this story stayed with you the most, because your words help keep stories like this alive and reaching the people who need them. As they left the airport together, Daniel realized that second chances don't always come wrapped in comfort or ease. Sometimes they arrive disguised as fear, asking you to stand up when you'd rather stay seated, to remember who you were without losing who you've become. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew he would face it differently now, with less shame about his past and more faith in his ability to protect what mattered most. And if this story touched your heart even a little, if it made you believe that ordinary people can rise in extraordinary moments, please like, share, and engage with this video, because every interaction helps spread messages of hope, courage, and the quiet heroism that lives inside us all.